Good morning. I'm Tannis Axten, and this is my husband, Derek. We are farmers from Minton, Saskatchewan, Canada. We're very honored to be here. When we got the invite from the Cherries, we didn't have to think about it long. We're like, yep, we'll come. And then it came to leaving at this time of year when our crops are growing, and we're like, good thing they asked us in the winter because I don't know. Now it's hard to leave, but we've got a great team at home, so we're excited to be here. We spoke yesterday, so we're going to give you a little bit of a recap. Where did I set the clicker? Just for any of you who weren't at our presentation yesterday, we were your typical conventional farmers. We farmed just as Derek's dad. We're on Derek's family farm. We farmed, how he had high synthetic inputs, pretty much just what we considered normal. Through watching our soil and seeing changes happen, we knew that something had to change. We had been no-till since about the 90s, so Derek's dad was quite progressive in that, and we were no-till, but it wasn't enough. We are in a low rainfall area, so anytime you get any rain, you need it to go into the ground, and we were watching it. We'd get a rainstorm, and it was washing away, which was really disheartening. So we knew our soil wasn't functioning, and even erosion, it was just killing us. So we made a lot of changes to our farm, which we went through a lot of the practices yesterday. It's not just one thing that we've done, it's a complex system, and it changes all the time. And once you do one thing, once we went to seeding with a disc drill, we realized stripper headers were a good fit, and things just kind of snowball, and we've kind of learned as we've went. But it all really leads back to healthy soil. And that is the goal we're trying to accomplish.
So, am I on here? 1, 2. All right. Hi. Sorry. So I'm Derek, and I just to reiterate, so none of this was really by design. Our entire journey was a giant group of unbelievable chance meetings of people, including Dr. Dwayne Beck, which led to Gabe Brown, and then we met Joel Williams, and we've met so many wonderful people who have just given us great ideas and shown us ways to look at our agricultural production system differently than we had been. We'd been so focused on yield was the metric, right? But at the same time, we were watching, our challenges become larger every year, and it felt like we were moving backwards more than forwards, even though we were spending more money every year. And thankfully to all of those unbelievable chance meetings that it really helped us open our eyes and just start to look at how we farm differently. So
yeah, we're going to kind of pick up a little bit where we left off yesterday. And one of the things we talked about in our farm system that's really important is diversity. So intercrops is one way that we've added a lot of diversity to our farm.
Yeah, so we with the chance meeting with Gabe's and being on his farm and walking his fields, and the thing that really hit me about Gabe's system was his diversity in his system that was way beyond anything we had. His multi-species cover crops. We walked in his corn that was awesome, that had no fertilizer. And so the main thing that I took from that was diversity. But then we come home to our grain farm and we're like, well, how do we add diversity like that to a grain farm? Because I don't have cows, and we didn't know where to start. So, I'd reached out to some people that I knew had been experimenting with intercrops, and this would have been 2011, and we put our first intercrop in. So that was one really nice way to start adding. So it's 2 crops instead of 1. By 2014, basically 50% of our farm was intercropped. We had gone through a series of different crops that we probably tried a dozen different combinations, and some work and some don't. And I think the only way to find out is experimenting on your own farm and in your context, because there's no way I can tell you what to do. So that, and the other thing about the intercropping was it gave us the opportunity to experiment with less fertilizer, because that was the other thing we were trying to get away from, was how do we do this with less fertilizer? And I guess in kind of the way that I always do things, when we started intercropping, we just quit using nitrogen. So all of our intercrops from that day have never had nitrogen applied to them. And maybe today the reason we're here is that it just worked out. And for whatever reason, And one thing has led to another. The intercrops have been a really big part of it. And we found that I don't know if you guys grow like monocrop legumes at all, but we were really struggling with keeping residue on the surface. And the intercrops, like, not only are they allowing us to use less fertilizer, but they're giving us a better CN ratio. So like if we have a monocrop pea or a monocrop lentil after harvest, our ground goes bare. But when we put like the mix together, the carbon nitrogen ratio balance changes, and we can maintain ground cover through the winter and into spring.
But we're not here to talk about intercrops. If you want to know more about intercrops, we will be at Andy Howard's on July 2nd. You can register at Joel Williams' website. But it is intercrops that has led us to more of the food side, which we're going to talk about today.
Right. So when you have an intercrop, the number one problem is, now what do I do with this mix of grain? Because no one buys mixes of grains. So this was the fancy setup. We started with a rotary drum. Is anyone familiar with a rotary drum? It's a big screen, and it's a horrible thing, but it's a means to an end. So we had a rotary drum. It's a big screen, and it screens out, and you get a pretty decent separation. So we did that for a couple of years. We tried a quick clean, which is it's a series of augers with screens, and it was a horrible thing. We wore out one set of screens in one season. But that led to, we knew we needed something larger capacity and something that we could do a better job with. So we bought a used, it's in the middle of the photo. It's a mobile grain cleaner, we call it. So it's 3 pieces of equipment on a semi-trailer. So it's a aspirator. It was 30 indents, a big air screen, and a 5x12 gravity. And this was the gateway drug to everything that we're doing today. We had no idea what we were getting into, but what we soon realized is that we were able to clean to export spec, to seed spec. We could clean with this machine. So that would allow us to separate an intercrop, and then say our pea or our lentil, we would be able to get that to a place where we could capture extra value that we hadn't been able to. And then that just made us start to think completely different about the crops we grow and the crops that we choose. So one thing leads to another. And this is 2017 happened here. So I wound up at No Till on the Plains in the fall of 2017, was invited to speak. And Tannis and I had been talking about, because that was a nice day, and we get winter in Saskatchewan. So one -38 day, I'm standing on top of the grain cleaner, pulling on a conveyor belt, and Tannis is holding the reset button down so we can get this thing to run. I'm like, what are we? This is, because it was basically every day we could clean outside in the winter. So it just got to be a full-time job. So what do we do next? Like, what's the next thing? I'm in No Till on the Plains, and there's a lady speaking about the possibility or the idea of regenerative, which was a new word in 2017, relatively new. There's regenerative ingredients being a stream similar to organics. And we were in sort of the idea phase of planning a facility, and I came home and told Tannis, we've got to do this. So through a series of planning and trials, and basically 3 years of planning, we built this facility on our farm. So and the other thing about the same time that happened is Will Harris, White Oaks pasture. Anybody familiar with Will Harris, White Oaks pasture? And he had a video that was called 100,000 Beating Hearts. Have anybody seen? This is too bad. You guys all need to Google this. 100,000 Beating Hearts. Write it down. It's a video that changed our life. So we watched this video. This was all in the same time period. And Will's talking about all the things he had done, but how when they built the harvesting facility, the kill plant, whatever you want to call it, on their farm, and what that did to their community. And prior to this, Tannis and I had never considered community to be a part of regeneration. Didn't even, for what, I guess because it's hard to think of everything. But that just changed our entire thought process. We live in a community of 50 people. We drive an hour and a half for groceries. And our town is getting smaller, not bigger. And the only way you can change that is somebody has to provide opportunity for young people to stay and have jobs and want to stay and create an environment that people want to be around. So anyway, we hung our necks out and built this. We started construction in the fall of 18. By the spring of 2020, We had the seed cleaning facility operational. Because we wanted to do food grade, it took a lot more time and money than we wanted. But by the spring of 2020, we realized that we needed to do more. Very few, we had hopes and dreams, but didn't realize that most food companies don't buy bulk grain. Even if it's clean, doesn't matter. So we started construction of a bagging, packaging facility, and then at the same time, added our flour milling line. So we just kind of got through the food safety of that, and I think Tannis is going to talk about that now.
Yeah, I was also going to mention this was a huge project for us. We've done this with zero government funding, zero investment from others. Just really, we found lenders that believed in what we were doing and felt that eventually this will work out. We had them come to our farm, show them what we're doing. You know, a lot of ag lenders are used to conventional ag. So when you tell them you want to build this big facility on your farm, mill your own flour, and there's going to be a market for this, which we really don't know, but we're really hopeful, and we must tell a good story because, you know, people were there to support us and help us, you know, lend us money so that we could move ahead with this project. But it was very daunting, but it's exciting at the same time and gives us a lot of purpose for, we spent a lot of time and growing our crops. We get excited about it and how we grow them. So to do all of that and dump it into the commodity market is heartbreaking. But there was no stream. We had nowhere, there was no mill. They're either conventional or they're organic, same processing plants. So this really was what we found to be maybe the solution.
So one of the things that it allowed us to do was to completely change the crops that we grow. So we, instead of growing the like in Western Canada, you know, canola, lentils, peas, durum, spring wheat, the traditional commodity crops, we don't grow any of. We grow lentils, sorry. But other than that, we don't grow commodity crops. We grow things that we can value add and sell into specialty markets and export basically worldwide now. That did not happen overnight. So I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture. There was a lot of sleepless nights and wondering what the hell did we do. But it's funny, and it's funny when we were building it. One of the suppliers to the equipment, I was talking about how nervous we were, and he's like, "Don't worry, it always turns out. Guys that build things like this, it always turns out, and you find something, and you know, and we did."
Yeah, so we realized that we needed to really do a mind shift change, and we're not growing commodities anymore. We're growing food. So if we were going to build this seed cleaning plant, the flour mill, we need to meet food safety standards. So Derek said, yeah, we should just get HACCP certified. And yeah, it's a lot of work. You can hire people to do it, but we decided to write all of our own policies. Derek, luckily, when he was installing the equipment, had done research on where to put magnets, metal detection, so that we could meet standards. And it took about a year, but we got everything written up. We've had our audits, and so we're HACCP certified, and now currently moving to the next level just to meet a higher standard that some customers require. So all the grain that's cleaned, we've got a great guy who runs our plant. Samples are taken every half hour. He inspects it by hand.
Kernel by kernel.
Yeah, he's got his tweezers out there. Just to make sure that we're getting, you know, it's clean. If it's not, we know we can re-clean it. And sometimes that happens. If we're not getting out what we need to, we can rerun it. There's lots of magnets. It's unbelievable where metal will come from. And then on top of that, we also have metal detection for after we mill our flour. It was funny because I sold a bag of flour to a bakery. And so I was telling her everything we do. And she said, oh, you know, that's a good idea. I just bought a bag of flour from a little mill. And there's this big chunk of iron in it.
Luckily, they do all their kneading by hand. So they found it.
Yeah. But so, you know, it's...
In Saskatchewan, the food safety laws, if you sell inside of the province or you do farmers markets, there's virtually no food safety laws. So there's lots of stone mills and old barns and old chicken coops. And, you know, their heart's in the right place, but the food safety is a little on the sketch side.
So if we're going to sell something we know people are eating, it's important to us to know that it's safe.
Yeah, and we have friends that are involved in a couple of food companies, and it seems like every time we get together and visit and have supper with them, they wind up telling us like food horror stories and recall horror stories. So we wanted to make sure it's going to happen, right? It's just, well, it already did happen once. We had something went wrong with the leg, and we wound up with a little bit of plastic. And we got a phone call from a buyer that they make flax meal. And she said, yeah, we've got a problem. And we had plastic, and they found it in their pasteurizer, which is not a good place to find plastic. And anyway, we worked out an agreement and got through it, but it was a very good lesson. So, yeah, now that we've got these, we've got these grains, we've got these ingredients, we've got customers, and some of our customers are great, but the very, very small percentage of our customers are buying our grains because of our production practices. A lot of our buyers buy our grain because they like our quality, but it is so unbelievably saddening to when we have the conversation about like why we think the quality is and the flavor is the way, they completely zone out, like glassy-eyed, change the subject, don't want to talk about it. So we're trying to find better customers. And through the same chance meeting of strange things that have happened in our life, I get a call from Solar, and he's the CEO of Regenified. And I knew Solar from his where he worked last, and I didn't realize he had moved. He missed a couple of meetings, so I just assumed he had moved on, and he did, to bigger and better things. And we get talking about Regenified, and we met with Solar at Expo West in California, in Anaheim, at a food show. And we met with them because I was, back in my Twitter days and when I was still on social media, I was kind of a vocal opponent of regenerative certifications just because of my context, unfortunately, was just I was thinking about organic certifications and how it's a list of this things not to do. And I was very concerned that regenerative certifications were going to be a list of things to not do, which is really easy to meet the bar and nothing more. But when they explained the tier system to us about how you like constant improvement is one of the main goals of the regenerative certification, and how it, and how all of their standards that they've set. That's a really great noise. Yeah, and how like they had put a tremendous amount of thought and work into their certification, and the things that they have to do. And anyhow, they had asked us if we were interested in becoming a certified farm, which sounds like a really good idea until you realize that you kind of have to lift your skirt, and then you have to show them a lot of things that maybe you don't want, and you don't know. You really don't know, like, because they come out, they brought a team out, they were at our place for a week with 2 guys. They do a scary amount of testing, massive. Everything for like aggregate stability, infiltration test, ground cover. Well, they were at our place for a week with 2 guys. And so anyway, and they do all of the soil biology tests, basically all of them. They do as many tests as you can imagine, they do it all. Which is great because then you get this information back. And then across the different, across all of our fields, which was nice because we had just bought a large neighboring farm out, and it was totally ground zero. He was a high input, high fertility user. So we were able to baseline that portion of the farm versus our other, because the biggest mistake we made back in the day was we never did baselines. We had no idea where we started. So this game gave us some really good information, and it's got us some conversations with some food companies that I think there's no other way that they would have happened.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. We weren't necessarily doing it. We were happy with our practices. It was nice to prove that what we were doing, we came in at a tier 5, which is the highest. So it was very rewarding to hear that. But for us, it was to help with some of the greenwashing. We had some companies that were interested in regenerative products, but everyone says they're regenerative. So how it was a third party that could verify that we're doing what we're actually saying we're doing. It's not just us saying it. So for us, a huge part of it was for the marketing aspect. And we've had some companies that's the reason they've come to us, is because of this certification.
Yeah, because I used to really struggle with even saying that we do regenerative. I would say we use regenerative practices because I didn't know. But I mean, now with the certification, and it's probably, I'm still concerned it's going to get greenwashed out. But at least now we can say, this is our regenerative certification, and here's our data. And you will fall asleep multiple times by the time you get through all of it. There is so much data. It buries you, but it's there, you know, and it's something. So then they come back every year for 2 years, do ground walks, make sure you still have ground cover, make sure you haven't done anything stupid, like buy a high-speed disc or whatever. And then on the 3rd year, they come back and they basically do the same battery of tests again. So yeah, we're kind of nervous and looking forward to that.
Yeah, so we had been really focused on the soil health. We're happy with the plant health. Then we get into the food, and food health became kind of our next passion. You know, we grew up in a time where processed foods were all we knew. And convenience, quick, it still is. It's something we look to. We just want to get in and get out with food. You know, we never put a lot of thought into our food. But as we look at our parents' health, Derek's mom just passed away in March. I know Derek said you shouldn't do this on. My mom's passing away right now. And it really makes you think sometimes, what are we doing?
Yeah, both cancer-related deaths, or well, Judy's still with us, but I mean, is there? Anyway, we're trying. You know, we've got a strong conviction that there's a connection between, you know, how we grow our food and how we process our food and the things we ate, right, and the outcomes of that. And we grew up. A lot of us that are our age and our parents grew up, and all of these, you know, these convenient food products were new and novel, and no one really knew what they were doing. I mean, it was kind of like the smoking at the time. We watched the movies in the 50s and everybody's smoking. And, you know, now you look back and everybody's eating KD. It gives us fuel to be a part of this system and be part of change. And that's a lot of why, you know, we chose a whole grain meal, because we feel very strongly that whole grain nutrition has to be a part of this whole movement. Like, it's one thing, I don't think it matters if we grow a great product and then we turn it into white flour and then it winds up in KD or in Fruit Loops. Does it matter? I don't know. I mean, I guess it's better than not. But I mean, as far as like changing human health, and if there is the connection that we really strongly feel that there is, you know, it's nice to be able to carry that nutrition from the field, you know, to the final product and into people. And we think with the right network of people that can be done.
So we were curious. We really didn't know then. You know, you hope with healthy soil, healthy plants, you have nutrition in the end. So we've been lucky enough to have a lot of nutrition testing done. You want to talk about that?
Mm-hmm. Sorry. So with the help of Regenified and Slar's team, we sent a lot of samples. Everything that we mailed, everything we grew this year, we sent to Dr. Stefan Van Vliet in the University of Utah to his lab. And there again, it's sort of like the data back from Regenified. It's just there's so much. Originally, we sent one unsifted sample of our 7 variety spring wheat, and all of our other grains sifted. So we're taking 15% out when we sift. So we have an 85% extraction. It's still a very whole grain, more whole grain than anything you'll buy flour, but it makes a very nice fine flour. And we sent these all in, and then we sent them in blind, so he doesn't know what he's testing. And we had a Zoom with him, and he was very happy for us to unblind the samples so he could see what they were and kind of make the connections. But I guess there was a lot of aha moments for us during that testing, because like not only was there noticeable differences in nutrition, but phytochemicals, it was very strongly correlated between the processing type and the grain type, production type, and then the outcomes. The other thing we learned too was about temperature at milling. I didn't realize this because it's very finite. Like he said, at 34 degrees Celsius, there's degradation. At 36, it gets bad. At 38, it gets severe. So there's so our mill, we know, runs at cooler temperatures. That's part of why we bought it. We have a customer that for the most of their product, they use white flour to make pizza, because, you know, everybody loves pizza dough. And so we had talked to them about if we could take a sample of theirs to use as a comparison. And it's funny because things like iron, because it's fortified, the iron level is really high, but it's iron that's added back to the flour. When we looked at this whole thing at a whole, so we sent all of our unsifted grains in, which are still functional. We've had testing done. It still makes a nice sourdough flow, but when we take 15% of of the flower of the brand. We do a 15% sift. It's 85% extraction. It's still we would think is a whole grain. If you were to pick a number, it's about a 50% reduction in antioxidants, and the phenolic content is 50%. I didn't realize it was that bad. And when you go to the white flour, it's virtually non-existent. So this is our antioxidants, right, in our brand. All of the things that the lady in last night was talking about, that stuff's all gone. So I didn't realize it was that severe. So I mean, I think the nice thing about the 85% extraction that we offer is that it's a really nice bridge. The functionality is super similar to AP, so people can take AP out of their typical recipes, put the 85% in, and it functions very similar. And it's this nice stepping stone then to the whole grain. And I think that's kind of how we foresee this thing moving forward. And it's a big step in the right direction. And at least it's 50% more than what's in the white. It's unbelievable. We were going to put the spreadsheet up, but it was just going to piss you off because you wouldn't be able to read it from the back anyway. So, but it's like the polyphenolics or the antioxidants are basically non-existent in white flour.
So for marketing, we have our story. We're really happy we did a lot of research on mills, and like Derek said, it mills at a low temperature, so it has a long shelf life. It makes a really fine flour, which makes it very functional, so that it is easy to replace and get rid of some all-purpose flour. But we soon realized that we're farmers and maybe not marketers. That's where we've been struggling a bit more. We know who we want to sell food to. We want people who really appreciate how their food's grown and how it tastes to buy it. But like Derek said, we find such a disconnect. A lot of our grain goes to people who really like it, but they could care less how it's grown. So finding our ideal customer has been a bit of a trick, and we are learning there has to be a little bit of compromise. So, is this mine or yours?
Yeah, no, these are three of the companies that do kind of care. So Signé is in just outside of Montreal. They buy some of our camelina, and they make a really nice cold pressed camelina oil. It's interesting because camelina, everybody thinks biofuel. But what I didn't realize is that camelina is very flavor-based, varietal, specific flavors. So they found some varieties, and we happen to actually be growing one of them that has a nice mild flavor that lends itself well to a cooking oil. Camelina has a really high smoke point, and it has an omega profile a lot closer to a flax, but you can cook with heat. So it's a cooking oil that I don't understand why we're not all, it would be up there like with olive oil as far as a healthy cooking oil, especially being cold pressed. We have a lady in Washington that makes a chilla. It's like a savory pancake with our chickpea flour. And then I don't know if anybody's heard of Burlap and Barrel. They're a single origin spice company out of New York. They're a super. If you guys like spices, check out Burlap and Barrel because they have single origin spices from all over the world. They're super flavorful. And we supply the yellow mustard, and we're just working on another little project with them right now that's hopefully going to pan out.
Yeah, I thought a good Christmas gift would be to order back some of our mustard from Burlap and Barrel. I went to buy it. It was $10 US for this tiny. I was like, well, I sold it to them too cheap. Holy. Luckily, he's seen my name on the order, and he sent it to me free. So I felt a little bit better. We find especially, because we're not well known, Saskatchewan, we're kind of sparse and spread out. But anyone who knows us and throughout the province, they always are saying, like, where can we get your flour? Where can we get your flour? So I find that every time I'm going here or there, I was taking it. And we decided to work with a lot of little stores throughout Saskatchewan, ones that I know aren't, I don't want, because our small bagging is still all done by hand. I can't be with a big store that says all of a sudden, I've got the product. I just right now don't have the manpower to fill a huge order like that. But it's been a great way, like this S&E grocery, they're in Radville. He competes with another store, a little bit bigger name. But I wanted to work with him because it's also helping him. It's driving more people. People email me, where can I get your flour? Well, at S&E. So it's driving more customers into his little store too. So we're in a few little stores throughout Saskatchewan, which has been really great, but the challenge is, it's not consistent and it doesn't move a large volume of flour. As a big farm, we can grow and produce a lot of flour. We've also been doing some direct to consumer. The best part about that is the feedback and the connection that you make. This one lady, actually, their family had quit eating flour altogether because it made them feel sick. And then we seen on Instagram, she had posted that it's all she eats and her eczema had disappeared after eating our flour for a while. So that gets you excited when you know that maybe this is having an impact on people. And, a lot of people, gluten has been a huge issue for a lot of people. And it's funny because I was at a food show and I was talking to a guy and he's like, yeah, I worked for a company and we actually, a big bread company, we extracted gluten out and put more into bread. So it's, we've done so much of taking out and putting back in. And so it's nice just to get back to the basics.
Yeah, I guess like Eddie said, like eat real food, and that's really what we're trying to do is just have this, simple, just flour, water, salt, or whatever it is, but just keeping it super basic and super whole grain and trying to be wholesome. And the flavor is surprisingly amazing. It's too bad because I think, what was the fella's name last night that was moderating, talking about the whole grain pasta. So we're going to send him some whole grain Corzan and we're going to get someone to make some pasta for him because it tastes surprisingly good. So the progress, what does that look like? And I talked about the Will Harris story, and for me, the big takeaway from Will's story, like beyond, the marketing and things they had done with their farm, was what they had done with their community. And we have a little town that just, no one is excited to move there currently, right? For no reason. We have very limited services. So we've got these 4 young guys now that have moved in. 2 of them have got families and got children, kids back in our school. The other 2 guys have moved in. 2 of them bought houses in Minton. That's an unheard of thing.
Okay.
People were.
How many people do you think live in Minton, Saskatchewan?
I told them already.
You already told them?
Were you paying attention? There we go.
So 2 is a huge increase.
Yeah, so I think we're the largest employer in our rural municipality. So we have these 4. We had a lady working for us, but she had to move away. So we did have a 5th, but we're probably going to have to replace her soon. And we think we have another kid coming full time this summer that'll join. So it'll be our 5th full time. So 2 of the guys one guy works in the plant most of the time. One guy kind of bounces back and forth, and then 2 guys are kind of full time on the farm. But just like the energy, we meet every morning for coffee at 7. And they all come and we drink coffee and tell stories and make a plan for the day. And like just well, I don't know, maybe I'm not old, but I think of them as young guys and that they're on it. And I know they were so pumped for me to be gone to just show me that they could do it. And I know, like, it's funny because we have the app, so I'm watching on Operation Center and the things that are going on, and it apparently is happening without me.
We've done a field day on our farm almost every year since, 2017, 2018. And it's a lot of fun to bring people onto our farm. It used to be like hugely producer farmers, but last year we did a little bit of a shift. We still had quite a few farmers, but we had a baker come right onto site and use our flour to make some snacks. And then we had a chef come and he made a meal using our flour for his pizza crust, and he made pasta. And we had people right on the farm, and we set up tables in our packaging facility, and it was a lot of fun. It helped bridge some of that gap that we have. So it was really small scale, but it feels like progress.
We had some neighbors come and visit and have supper with us, and kind of tell us that they were happy to see, because we never know, and we always feel like we're super weird. The farmers that we don't know what the community impact is, but we really feel like the field days we've been having and events like this are really changing the perspective of others, and I know it sounds silly, but I still think that farming is super social. I mean, I know when I'm not farming, I like to get together with other farmers and drink beer and talk about farming, basically is what we do. So that's our pastime. So, and it's, you worry like what people, I used to worry, I guess, but the fact that we had some neighbors show up to that supper was, to me, was a really big deal for us.
Well, it was progress, because we've had field days a lot, and generally we've had people come from all over Canada, the US, and generally no neighbors, no one that lived close to us. They kind of, they drive by, and they kind of, especially when you have rows of compost, they really wonder what you're doing, but they don't seem to want to ask. But it's improving. Yeah,
and I think this whole adding the dynamic of food and festival and beer, so everybody can let their guard down a little bit and have a conversation. Like a bunch of them stayed and helped us clean up. Like, that's a sign of a true friend. The ones that stay and help you clean up the mess after the party's over.
So the other progress, or what we hope is progress, is our children. Our daughter is in university studying international food business. She loves agriculture and farming, but not necessarily the farming part, but loves the food part. She does not love our food system that we currently have. So her goal is to try to make some changes in our food system, which she's with us here, and I know that she has more questions after, the more talks you go to listen to, it's a very daunting task, but the advantage she has, and all of our kids that are growing up in a system of regenerative farming, that's all they know. They didn't grow. I mean, I remember when our son was young and we'd drive by a field with tillage, he'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Dad, did you see that?" Yeah. Whereas when we grew up, that's what we did for fun. So it's been a huge shift. So I feel like they have such an advantage, and it'll be so much easier for them to make changes because they don't have to do the mindset shift. They're already there thinking, what can we do? Our son just graduated high school. He's home. I don't know if it'd be interesting to see when you're gone what happens. I don't know. We thought maybe he'd want to step up as boss, but we seen he got put to work and was the one out in the field yesterday. So maybe our hired men put him to work. We don't know. He just graduated high school. He's going to trade school to study mechanics. He loves the farm. It's interesting because I find it a little bit more challenging for him. A lot of his friends then are just conventional farmers' sons. So they, a lot of times, they get their work done during the week, whether that needs to be sprayed or not, you get it done so that you can go to the lake on the weekend. It's just kind of how a lot of people function in our area. But not us, right? We always have a different project. We really focus on timing, do only what we have to when we have to. So he can't always plan, golfing with his buddies or going to the lake. Missed a grad party a couple weekends ago. But the fact that he didn't even question, can I go? He just got up in the morning and went to work, shows us that his mind is already there, that what we're doing is important. So, yeah, this is hopefully the future. I mean, ideally on our farm, but if not, we know that they're able to go out and hopefully make a difference. And I think do you have something to add?
No, that's kind of how we wanted to wrap it up. I mean, we didn't know where to start and stop exactly, but we were hoping to leave time for questions. If anybody has questions, there isn't. The only bad question is the one you don't ask. So, yeah, have at her.
Should we sit down?
You can if you want. I'm not going to.
Not the most interesting question in the world, but how do you power your plant? You presumably quite big users of electric.
Yeah, so we're like in Western Canada. There's like single phase and three phase. We're fortunate enough to be right beside a 3-phase line, so we're electric, obviously. Soon as there's a solar program and plan, but we had to get everything. We had to get to a point where we could measure what we're using, so we could size the facility, which we're in the middle of kind of doing right now, because. I think solar is going to work for us. SAS Power, which is like our provincially owned power company, doesn't have the best program right now, but the word is they're going to come with a little better program for someone like us All of most of their solar programs are for like household and smaller things right now, or small farms, and our power use is quite high.
Thanks for sharing. What percentage of your produce are you currently able to add value and sell? And could you sell a lot more if you could get more employees?
So right now, probably about 90% of the grain goes through the cleaner, and not very much goes through the flour mill. We just got through our food safety just before Christmas, so we really didn't put any effort. I made the mistake of about 18 months prior to that, making a promise that I couldn't keep to a food company, and that bit me in the ass real bad. So that was because we couldn't meet with the flour thing. And so after that, I was like, I'm not even going to talk about flour until we have flour like on a pallet ready to go out the door. Because I don't know, it's a little bit like building a house. It costs twice as much and takes twice as long as you want it to. So that's kind of what happened to us. And, being through COVID and all of the wonderful things that happened there, our timeline was off. But yeah, labor is going to become an issue. This is why we have this. There's a young kid from Ontario is coming out now. He's a friend of a friend that interned at our place. So it's kind of neat that we don't advertise for help, and we're at a really good place for labor right now. We haven't advertised. It's been word of mouth. We have a couple of guys coming from Australia that are one's the son of Matt McKinley. I don't know if anyone. He's an Aussie no-tiller, and his son is coming, and one of his friends is coming for harvest. It's really cool what's been happening with the labor pool.
As far as our grains, would you say about 50% goes into a food market? We got quite a few grains
and seed
goes into cover crop seed markets. And because we're cleaning, because we can get pure seed, it works well to go into a seed market. I would say our limiting factor now is our marketing and finding these companies that are looking for our grain and our flour. Because even our grain, like you said, the stuff that is going out is going to people who like the quality, but it's not because we're regenerative farmers.
Hi there. Just on the all the measurements, the health measurements that you had. Appreciate those will go up and down with the season or whatever. But would you ever consider making those claims on your packaging and in your marketing?
So we talked to Stefan about that. The problem is that just the variability in the samples. It's funny because we sent one of our whole grain samples went in, and there was something that was less, and it didn't make any sense. And he said it's just in-field variability, like it's even in the field, So then you take, I don't know exactly how the U.S. system, but I watch TV and everybody sues everybody on TV. It looks like so. I don't want to get into that. And I don't know how it works, but we try to just talk in general terms of what we see in percentages, and hopefully that's enough. I'm assuming we'll get to the point maybe where the technology will be good enough that we can maybe scan it as we bag it, or who knows where it'll go.
I don't know. I've come to where I don't even look at the nutritional facts on anything anymore. Like they used to be, you check the calories, you check the fat. When I found out, because in Canada I have to have the nutritional facts on everything that I sell outside of province. So I talked to our government agency and said, it's a lot of money to test every product. And they said, no, it's okay, just Google it.
No shit.
So I Google it and I try to pick the best one because I hope I'm in and put it on. So to me, I encourage people to look at the ingredients, because the nutritional facts are bullcrap.
That was the CFIA. Yeah, so so that panel means nothing. Yeah, it means I Googled. There was one here.
Am I right in that you guys run a stripper header for a lot of your farm? What have you found to be the pros and cons of deciding to do that? We've just bought one and we've not started running it yet, so it's quite a daunting change compared with a traditional header.
Well, when we started, it was kind of for different reasons. I'm not sure. When we first bought a distro, we had no idea what we were doing, and we had done a horrible job of residue distribution and spreading the fall before, and we didn't. Anyway, we seeded and we had a whole bunch of hairpinning, and it was a kind of a bad deal. And we wound up back at Dakota Lakes, and he told us about like stripper headers and how you don't have to spread what you don't take back in the combine. and then the whole idea for us to capture snow, we're trying to maximize the amount of moisture we can capture, and obviously make combine efficiency better. What we did have some land that was an hour north of us that was a lot wetter than where we operate. And what we would do there is we would take a little more, like, because you can kind of control how much you take with the speed of the rotor. And we would take a little more, like, and depending on what it's like, I mean, if it's really dry and it looks like the long range forecast is dry, then sometimes we leave it as tall. But you can actually kind of control how much you take by how fast you're on the rotors. So that's basically what we would do. But we would strip everything we could strip. I've tried to strip everything because it's amazing what a difference it makes. Even we tried to strip lentils, they're this tall, and that didn't pan out very good. It would do it, but our header loss was horrible. So we just couldn't, we were leaving way too much money on the ground. But it was the next year, though, you could see the difference where it had caught the snow in the spring, how the crop come out of the ground faster. It was, for us, a big deal.
Yeah, well, even just leaving all of that residue and those nutrients in the field instead of running them through your combine. And, well, for us, wind is always a big factor, too. So at least this, it still has a root and it's still anchored there. So, yeah, we love our stripper headers.
This is an interesting fact about stripper headers. There's a feed lot 20 miles north of us, doesn't matter. And the manager that was there is actually the guy that bought our cow operation and now is a really good neighbor and provides the cows to our place. But when he was the manager there 15 years ago, there was a couple other guys had stripper headers, and they would strip the field and then bale the straw. They'd use a windrower and windrow it and bale it. And Ryan was willing to pay 50% more per ton for that straw, because the value they got out of the feedlot, like in the feedlot, he said it was more than that, but he could still pay 50% more for that straw than stuff that had even been through a Walker combine. So now there's guys that do that strip and then swath it and take it all, which is completely counterproductive. But anyway, that's what they do. But it's interesting. I mean, in that scenario, the feedlot, the guys were getting manure back, so they were doing a 1-for-1. But yeah, no, we love them. I mean, it's the speed. Like with us with four, like the green cart they're the limiting factors, right? The guys it just drives me insane when they drive fast and then they all fill up and then they all sit and wait for the green cart. So just they just have to slow down and match the logistics. But I think our newest ones are 14s. We put a pile of acres on them. As long as you keep them out of the rocks, they seem to last a long, long time. We're very happy with them.
Thank you. What was the throughput or potential throughput of your plant? And if you don't mind me asking, what the investment was?
That's one I was actually expecting. So we run about. It's different than a seed cleaner because the equipment definitely can run faster than what it does. Our color sorter is kind of our bottleneck because it looks at every single kernel. We just put a Buehler A series in, which is it's got a certain amount of artificial intelligence. But it's about 7 tons, 6.5 tons, depending on what we're doing. 7 tons an hour. And that's food grade. That's 99.99. So this is the things we learn about when we build seed plants, is there is a giant difference between 99.9 and 99.99. Like, we're talking monumental. It's like, it's the first time I golfed in Tiger Woods. Like, we had no, and that's where you have, if you want to be in food ingredients, so you got to be free of glass and stones, free of metal, and 99.99 to get into most food companies. So that's part of why we went. So with that being said, there's places that can do that, but then if your losses get too high, so if you wind up with too much good grain going out the wrong door, like going in with your screenings, that can break you. So we put a pile of time and effort and money. This is the big reason we made the color sorter upgrade, because color sorters, they're only as good as the operator. And these new A series are super easy to operate. They learn as they go. And it's really, we had just got running basically. And then we had realized that our sorter, it was the newest Buehler at the time, but we didn't realize that these A series, when they had come out, how much better they were and how much easier they were to operate. So we made the switch, and it's one of the things that probably paid for itself within a year, just with less loss. So when you're talking with, commodities, things that are worth $1 a pound, more than $1 a pound, you don't need many pounds to go the wrong way. And then it's not such a good thing. And we originally thought, like, well, we'll just get it back. We'll reclean it. We'll go pick it. No. It's not. It's work. There's more work than it's worth, which is unfortunate. But we've got about 8 million Canadian dollars invested in that thing as it sits today. It started off innocent because it was going to be 2 and then it was going to be 4.
Yeah, had I known.
But it's without a doubt the best money we've spent on. Like now looking back, at the time it was great. Now there's no way I could do it again. I think I was like blind optimism was kind of what fueled it.
And it still is. It's exciting. It's challenging. And it makes us get up and have to go to work because we're going to make this work. And it's, we don't get settled into a rut, which I quite easily could do. I'm that type of person. But Derek challenges me and I got to pay his debts. So way to go.
Well, I have a joke. I want to get a T-shirt that says, "Tell me I can't." And, it has been. It's been great. So, sorry, question.
One more question, if that's all right. What sort of wheat varieties are you growing for your flour?
So we grow a varietal blend of spring wheat, which was, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the fellow's name, but there is a guy northeast of London, and I know that's a terrible direction, that Joel Williams had introduced me to through social media, and he had been working with varietal blends, and that was where we got the inspiration for that. Does anyone know his name? No. Tim something? I don't know. Tim Parton. That's the one. Yeah, and Joel Williams had introduced me to him through social media, and he had been doing it and just saw all these results of checking all the boxes that we wanted to, less fungicide and less fertilizers, and all those things are happening, and that kind of encouraged us to do that, which was cool. And then we grow Corazan, which is an ancient durum. Organic people call it, there's an organic version of that that's called Kamut. This is the same grain, but we call it's Corazan is what it actually is. We grow spelt, einkorn. That's basically it.
I think that's what we've narrowed it down to. We've done others, but those are
that's what those are the current cereal grains. Yeah, Corazan makes up half of it. It's been a really nice one for us. One of the other interesting things that we didn't mention about the nutrient testing that we found was super interesting was that there's a belief, I guess is the word, that ancient grains are superior to modern varieties. And if you want to talk about that, we can talk about that. But it wasn't what we thought it was going to be. The surprise, rye. Rye was the rock star, by far. Polyphenolic content of rye was by far the best. Buckwheat and rye were unhulled buckwheat and rye were by far the best. Hulled buckwheat was like white flour, bad. So it was really interesting to do this. It just comes back to that whole you can't manage what you don't measure and don't guess because you're wrong. So, but yeah, that's basically what we've been growing. Any other?
So was there a difference between the ancient grains and the modern grains? Because I'm guessing there's not much.
So the question was, is there a difference between ancient grains and modern grains? And it's not what we thought. So rye, which was the variety of rye we grow, was developed in North Dakota in the 60s, called Dakota. And it's an old variety. We love it because it grain yields well and it gets super tall. So that's why I grow it. I got it from a cowboy. Then Corazan, basically, this is an unsifted, 1 year's trial data, basically, right? And then the 7 variety spring wheat was right behind the Corazan. And then now I'm working to remember. I can remember the top 3, but the 7 variety spring wheat was right up there.
So the blend did really well.
It did really well.
Yeah, we did. We found that interesting. Maybe it all comes back to that diversity.
Yeah,
So-
we like that. We love this whole idea of epigenetics, and I don't have any data to say that it works or whatever, but I mean that's the whole idea behind it, and that's why that's part of the reason we wanted a seed cleaner was so we can keep more of our own seed, and why we grow mustard and not canola, because we can grow mustard and keep our own seed. A lot of our seeds we've been growing the same ones for just about 20 years, so I think that makes a difference. Oh, one more question, sorry.
Is this on? Yeah. Do you see a world where producers in your area want to run through your facility, or you aggregate on behalf of your regional area?
So that was never the design, but never ever say never ever. I've learned. And the other thing, you know, so we actually, there's one grain that we grow that we do have a couple of neighbors grow some for us because we can't grow enough and we don't want to monocrop so much in order to do that. So I've got a couple of good buddies that I grew up with that I trust that anyway, do that for us. So we kind of do already, not regenerative farmers at all. But, you know, that I think there's a huge opportunity. We get a lot of tours. I don't know how many, a lot. Of just want to come to the facility and see what we've done, because I think there's a big opportunity for farmers to go together, maybe 4, 6, 8, 10, whatever it is, and do something like this regionally. Because you can, for us, the ability to detach from the commodity market, and if you did it as a group, you wouldn't have to do it cold turkey like we did. You could just sort of pick your battles and find your markets and do it collectively and have some time to do some marketing and delegate some jobs. And I think there's a big opportunity for that, because I know it's a lot of money, but you know, how much land do you buy for $8 million, right? Not that much. Where this, for us now, all of our land goes through that facility. So we add extra value to everything we grow. Well, lentils, we can't find a market for lentils, which is strange, but we can't. So I guess the people that buy lentils don't spend extra money. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of been, that's always kind of been the model is to have something, because when we built our seed cleaning facility, people would help us to no end. Like, do this, don't do that. Make sure you don't buy this. Make sure you buy that. Make sure you install this like this. They were so like detail. Try that with a flour mill. They just like, so-and-so will call you back on Tuesday. Well, Tuesday, which Tuesday? No one, if they still haven't phoned back anyway. Other than Dean Folkvord, if anyone's heard of Wheat Montana, the Wheat Montana story is super cool. They were in Three Forks, Montana, just outside of Bozeman. Dean was an absolute gentleman. We spent a whole day with him. He actually has since sold his facility. He had 2 daughters that both don't eat gluten and had no interest in the farm, so he divested of both. But a wonderful man, super knowledgeable. The reason we have the mill we have is because of his recommendation. Claudia Carter from the California Wheat Commission also recommended the same mill. So when that many people are telling you to do something that are way smarter than you, it's kind of the thing to do. But yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity. So.
All right. Well, we'll let you go have lunch. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.